Thank you for
Next up,
having me.
we'll introduce a world bronze medalist and Olympian. He won 2 junior college national championships, was a 2001 NCAA finalist. It's been that long. Geez, NCAA finals for Oklahoma State. He's got a couple things. He's got a couple straps from the USC, I think. A Louisiana native, Daniel Cormier, head coach at Gilroy, one of the top programs in the state. Mr. Cormier, thank you for your participation here in Keep Fresno State's wrestling campaign. And before we kick things off, I want to know, what's it like for you the last 2 years to really kind of engross yourself in California high school wrestling?
You know what, Jason, it's been different. I had been away from coaching for a long time since I left Stillwater back in 2009. And so I had been coaching kids, but never really coaching at a level where I was trying to be competitive with people. And for the last 2 years, I've really loved being around the sport more, and also getting to see the type of talent that is what is California. It's like nothing I've seen in the high school level in my life.
Your experience in seeing some of the studs from California came from your days in that room in Stillwater. Of course, several Californians were on that roster and did quite well for Coach Smith and the Cowboys. But when you think about Fresno State wrestling prior to coming to California as a high school coach, and of course your fighting career brought you there, what do you remember most about Coach Dennis DeLito's teams?
You know what's crazy about Coach D is like him and I's story goes all the way back to 2001. Because I remember going into the little gym at Fresno State, we dueled him. When he talked about John would kick his butt on the wrestling mat, I remember we wrestled Fresno State in the little gym, and back-to-back Tyrone Lewis and I got lateral drops, and we won the match, and Coach DeLito was like, what is going on? At that time, Dwayne Zinkin, his nephew, and my manager to this day, was starting to get into managing mixed martial arts fighters. Coach D is almost in a roundabout way responsible for me fighting, because he made the introduction between me and Dwayne, saying, hey, there's this guy came into the little gym. He's athletic. I think the sport will work for him. And I just remember Dwayne taking his uncle's word, and we built our relationship. And today we've won a lot of championships, and we've done a lot of special things based on the relationship what Coach D saw in me in the little gym and as I went on in my wrestling career. But I remember the guys being scrappy. I remember those guys being hard-nosed. I remember the guys just being willing to fight. And I think ultimately, when it comes to a wrestling match, a lot of times it's about fighting. And the Fresno State guys knew how to fight, and they were slick. They could scramble. They could really scramble. And I wasn't the guy that scrambled. So watching Stephen Abbas and Jerry and those guys being and flipping through the legs and catching the ankle and really almost changing the game. Before there was Ben Askren and all these other guys that were known for funk, it was the Abbas brothers that developed that style in the room down in Fresno. So it all those things really did stick with me as I've watched Fresno State from when I was an athlete to where I am today.
You're blessed to have a coaching staff that's got a lot of wrestling experience and all around this country. And those of us that look at California wrestling from an outsider, you're an outsider coming into California coaching. Yeah. You didn't grow up there, so you don't really know what the kids think about until you actually got there coaching with them. What do your kids think about Division I college wrestling and their opportunities? And how much does a school like Fresno State sit in their radar, be like, Coach, I think I want to go to Fresno State. I want to go to, I want to stay in California to wrestle and represent my state.
Jason, we really came in with an idea that we wanted to have more kids from Gilroy. Yaru talked about his background and where he grew up at. There's been good wrestling in Gilroy for a long time, but we spoke about getting kids into college more, right? More often, more frequently. And for the last 2 years, we've had 16 kids go to college on scholarships, not only boys, but also girls. So taking our relationships that we have outside of just California and building them. But here's one thing. I've had 3 commitments to Fresno State. Ryan Reyes, who was a state champion, committed to Fresno State. Nicholas Villarreal, who was a 2-time state runner-up, committed to Fresno State. And Jaden Gomez committed to Fresno State because they saw the value in the program, looking at the coaching staff, looking at the facilities, looking at their commitment to getting better, not being okay with just being okay, was one of the things that really drew me and allowed for me to talk to my kids and go, you know what, that is a great decision to go and wrestle down in Fresno, because I can see what they're building.
Coach DeLito talked about the old Prop 48s, and you were a junior college athlete yourself, coming from Louisiana, and not necessarily going directly to Division I, but a school like Fresno, it's not Stanford. So we know that certain type of students that may not have that rough upbringing can do the Stanford thing, or they can do the Cal Poly thing. Why does Fresno State Wrestling serve a need, not just for wrestling, but for the citizens and taxpayers of California?
Oh, it provides an outlet for guys like myself who didn't have the grades or the ability to go to one of the bigger universities. You know, you can work with a state university like Fresno State and, you know, different state universities around the country. But I know that kids love Fresno because not only does Fresno State provide a great opportunity to compete, they also have a ton of sports. They also have a great being in Fresno for college seems like a lot of fun, right? The football team's better, baseball team's better. There are a number of things that people enjoy about Fresno, and to have wrestling in the Central Valley, where I believe, I mean, honestly, across the country, the Central Valley of California wrestling may be better than any area in the entire nation when it comes to that. Their regional tournament, their sectional tournament, Jason, is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life. They've got Clovis North, Clovis West. They've got Buchanan. They've got Selma. They've got all these great teams wrestling in order to get into the state tournament, taking 9 people to the state tournament from their bracket. I've got 13 dudes in the finals in my conference. You know, I'm over here living life. They're beating each other up. I'm over here just kind of cruising into the state tournament every year. It's a very competitive area, but they need the program to stay, because if they can get these kids from that area, all these talented kids, to stay and wrestle in town, Fresno State has the ability to be one of the top 10 teams in the country. That's how important it is to the state of California to have a school like Fresno keep wrestling around.
Also looking at the development. I mean, we got an All-American from Fresno State the second year the program was reinstated. You've been, I mean, even though you weren't actively coaching during your UFC career, you were still following Division I college wrestling. You'd be brought in to do commentary for the U.S. Open and things like that. You paid attention to what's going on. To have an All-American, you're basically your second year as a program, and not having be a ringer from another school. What does that say about the development and what the school had going there with wrestling?
You know, for a guy like Josh Hokie, who went to Fresno to play football, right? Guy was a fantastic running back. And then when the program got brought back, he's like, I've wrestled a long time. Let me get back in the room and try to follow another sport that I love. Got in there with the coaching staff. They were able to get their hands on him, reintroduce him to the sport that he did his life, and look at what it turned into. I mean, these guys from this area, like I said, they've wrestled at such a high level for so long that if they stay home, they can become just about anything they want to be. And I just think that Fresno State is a place where wrestling can be really good. You know, Jason, I went to a do meet last year, and the place was packed. I went to a do meet right before a high school tournament. The place was packed. People want to see wrestling in the Central Valley. They show up in droves, and there's good wrestling every single time you step out on that mat.
When you look at the makeup of the kids you have, probably every single one of them would fit at Fresno. Every single one of them is a wrestler. You know, you've obviously bringing the coaching tutelage and your mentality to them, but why, as even before this, why would you push a kid to Fresno State as a high school coach?
You know, as a coach, I would send them there because I know they're going to get a good education. I know that they have a chance, right? A lot of the kids from here, from Gilroy, you know, they want to stay close. You know, I've got a lot of kids that want to be close to family. And like Coach DeLito spoke to on a number of occasions when he was speaking, they're a family over there. So to go into that family environment, to feel something familiar as they feel at home is very important to these young men. And Fresno provides that. They provide not only a great opportunity to compete at the highest level in the Big 12, they also provide great facilities, but they create a family environment that will allow for these young men to feel like they are still close to things that they've known their entire lives. That's so important. You know, the area I'm from, it's all about family. And these kids need to be in a program where they can feel that when they go off to college.